happening in the Sangoma house. This wasn't happening in the witchcraft Waker house. This wasn't even happening in somebody's private home. God literally was exposing the church leaders who were deeply involved in not just idol worship, but they were a secret society group of people handling the affairs of God. So God says, coming towards the ending part of chapter 8 of Ezekiel, and he says that he's going to bring judgment, and that judgment is going to begin from his house. What is even more beautiful about this story is when we go into chapter 9 of Ezekiel. Listen, when you get the chance, please go read it. It is so mind-blowing. So God now is going to do judgment. So God called for the watchmen of the city. Now, who were these watchmen? These were the angelic hosts that literally watched over the land. Invisible beings, you couldn't see them. And Israel said there was one guy who came fully clad in white linen, and he had an ink horn in his hand. And I think there were 4 or 5 other men. These were all spirits, though. So God said to the one with the ink horn, he says, go and mark everyone in Israel that is not a part of these abominations that Israel is committing against me. So the guy got in the spirit, and he's literally marking people in the spirit, and they don't even know. They're walking about doing their regular business, shopping, taking baths, going to places, hanging out with their friends, but they have no idea that this spirit is literally marking them in the spiritual realm. So after the spirit was done, God commanded the other watchmen, which are also angels. He says, now go and destroy everyone that do not have the mark. They went, take them out. Now, they had the charge of killing them, but the truth was, in reality, they probably fell down from a heart attack, had a stroke, probably was in an accident, and it just looked like normal stuff. But what was really happening was judgment. The spirit of death through these angelic beings was taking them down. It kind of reminded me of Corona. It reminded me very much of Corona. And why it reminded me of that, it reminded me because so many people died, as well as a lot of people didn't die, right? And so many people died, you figure, well, boy, I can't believe this person died, they were Christian, blah, blah, blah. Not to say that they wouldn't die because they were Christian. And I said, I wonder if Corona was one of those judgments where God had enough. Now, there's a particular church, I'm not going to call the church name, already in America, very, very popular denomination. And they had a whole heap of pastors and clergy died during the pandemic. I know many of you know what I'm talking about, but I'm not calling any name. Again, my mind ran right back on the same story about Ezekiel 8 and verse 9, Ezekiel chapter 8 and chapter 9. When the judgment of God came and began to wipe the Christian alike, take them all down. But that's a different story. So the point I'm making here, though, again, these men who are serving other gods simply means whether it's a god, an idol, or whatever, it has to be done at the altar. And it is this altar where they're bringing up spirits, where God says, do not. I think the first commandment was not to serve other gods or whatever the case may be. So in where is it now? In Leviticus 26, verse 1, again, just like in Deuteronomy 7, verses 1 to 5, in both cases, God through Moses is reiterating the dangers, the travesties, the spiritual implication, of messing around with these things. And while they look so honorable on the outside, there's so much attached to that you should never be a part of, because once you are, you're also not knowing bringing that upon your family members and so on. So in Deuteronomy chapter 18, I want us to go there now. Deuteronomy chapter 18, and we're going to read from verse 9 to verse 13. And he says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, he's talking about Canaan now, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations. You see that word again. the abominations of those nations. So don't do what they're doing. Because the reason why they're being evicted from the land was because of these abominations. And God is saying not to do it. So he's now about to list some of these abominations. All right. I read this to you the other night. Okay, verse 9 of Deuteronomy 18. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. Okay, which is the Canaanites, the Gigacites, all these other people. Verse 10. There shall not be found among you. Now, who is he talking about? The people of God. Okay, the children of Israel. He says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter pass through the fire. So, of course, the shrine or the idol that one of the idols that the Canaanites worship was start with C. What's the name now? Anyway, this particular idol, like I told you the other night, what they would do is there was a pit in front of this idol, pit of fire, and they would literally take their newborn babies and throw them into the fire. And this was the sacrifice that they made to this particular god. All right. So he said, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. So all this have to do with the occult, metaphysics, all this other stuff. Verse 11, or a charmer, or a consultant with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or necromancy, mean communication with the dead. Listen, for all that do these things, listen the word again, are an abomination. God said, I hate it. I hate what they're doing there. So he says, all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord God had driven them out from before thee. He's evicted them out of the land. He says, thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. All right. Now, let's go to Leviticus 18, because we're about to get deep now with these abominations. So you saw the witchcraft side of it. Now, where we go now is going to be very interesting, because let me just turn it there first while I'm talking to you. Leviticus 18. Yeah, and we're going to read the whole chapter. And it's an interesting because God is going to, again, reiterate some stuff that he don't want them to do. And when we begin to read it, it's going to sound like, whoa, 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 this don't make sense. But this is going to be the part of this teaching where the two scriptures I gave you earlier is going to now come into play, which was 1 Kings 22, verses 19 to 22, where I showed you where spirits persuade human beings, they influence us. Then I gave you 1 Corinthians 10, verses 20 to 21, where I showed you that the spirits that's just doing the influencing came from altars where mankind went and dabbled with these things, inviting spirits. Okay, they were making sacrifices in agreement with demons. And it is these same demons, but the purpose, this is the part I want to get to. The purpose of these demons is, yes, to hold mankind down, to cause them not to go forward, to limit them in life with poverty and so on. Okay, that is true. But primarily is to influence them to engage in abominable acts. Okay, I want you to hear this now. And I talking about vile acts. All right. Now, remember the abominations that we talk about had to do with altars, had to do with necromancy, witchcraft, charmers, consultants, sorcerers, wizards. He said they are all abomination. But in Leviticus 18, beginning at verse 1, and the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord thy God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherewith ye dwelt, shall ye not do. So you see here, Egypt and Canaan practiced the same type, serving other gods and dealing with altars and all this other stuff. So he says, after the doings of the land of Egypt, wherewith ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, okay, wherewith I bring you, shall you not do. So he's telling you, don't do these things that they do. Okay? You shall Verse 3. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwell, shall ye not do. And after the doing of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall you not do. Neither shall you walk in their ordinance. What does the word ordinance means? Do not walk in their laws, their rules, their precepts, because they are perverted. Okay? Watch this now. Verse 4. Ye shall do my judgments. Don't do their judgments. Don't do their laws. Because over there, they believe in same-sex marriage. Over there, they believe in transgenders. Over there, they believe in having sex with animals. Over there, they are perverted. And I can prove it to you right now. Verse 4. You shall do my judgments and keep my ordinance to walk therein. I am the Lord thy God. So we are about to read something right now. And you're going to raise your eyebrow like, wow. Why would God tell us not to do these things? Nobody in their right mind would ever do this. So you think. But remember, the people that he said are over there doing the same things now, what he's telling Israel not to do. They are influenced by the spirits of the altars. That's what I'm telling you right now. The demons that they were calling up, remember I told you that? They were polluting the land. And the pollution of the land not only polluted the land, it defiled the land as well as it defiled the people, because the spirits encouraged them to go against the laws of God, the ordinance of God, but in a perverted way. And this is the evidence of the altars speaking to the land. The increase of incest, the increase of homosexuality, the increase of human sacrifice. When you see these things, the altars are speaking. And that's what I was building up with all of that background just now to bring you to this point right here. So watch this now. Watch this. Verse 5 of Leviticus 18. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am the Lord. None of you shall approach. Listen. None of you shall approach, because remember, everything we are about to read that he said don't do, they were currently doing it in the land of Canaan, and they would be the Hivites, the Girgasites, the Perizzites, and every other side over there. These people were sick and perverted. None of you shall approach to any that is next of kin. Don't sleep with your family then. That's what he's saying. To next of kin to him. To uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord thy God. Because that's what they was doing over there. It was normal to have sex with your mother, your sister, to have sex with your brother, for two brothers to have sex, or he's having sex with his. See, because all of what they're doing, yes, they're being influenced by the demons, but this was also a part of their worship to the demons. Watch this now. Listen, let me just pause right here. Somebody can be able on this line, if you were involved in sorcery before, high level sorcery, you'll be able to relate to what I'm saying. There's certain powers that people will go to altars to seek. And a part of the ritual, depending on what they want, part of that sacrifice that the spirits want from them, they will be commanded to sleep with their daughter or to have sex with their son. A man to have sex with his son, or a woman to have sex with her son, or a man to have sex with his daughter. And the deal is, if you do this, then we will give you more power. And more power simply means we're going to assign more demons to you so you could, assign them to do stuff for you or what have you. But all of that came from what we're reading right now. Because the purpose of that spirit, even though you summons this spirit to make you rich, to take this fix off you, whatever, he can do that. He may do it. I don't know. But nevertheless, he's coming. Just like I told you, when God show up to his altar, he's bringing blessing. Well, these spirits, when they show up, yeah, they coming to do your bidding according to you, or so you think. But the truth is they're coming laden with curses, laden with fine print you didn't get to read. That's going to be executed or dumped into your life, and by extension, your family. So he says here, where are we now? Okay, here we go. Oh, in Jeremiah, I don't know how we got there. Let's go back to Leviticus 18. Leviticus 18, all right? So Leviticus 18, verse 6, none of you shall approach to any that is next of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord thy God. The nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. But why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? So you see, the reason why they were doing that was because of the altars. You find a lot of people who into witchcraft, they're deep into pedophilia. Sick. Why? Because there's a spirit influencing them from that altar. And that spirit is putting pressure on them to do these things. God says, which one of you spirits will go and influence Ahab to go up to Ramoth Gilead, where he will lose his what? Life. He said, I would go. God, me. And who are you again? I will be a lying spirit. I will deceive them. God says, okay, you got the permission from me. You could go. Wow. You see that? You see that? That's why I tell you, stop looking at things from the guy, your friend who always telling lies. And I know you say, hey, look at this old liar coming. No, he is a liar. But there's a spirit influencing him. There's a spirit oppressing him. There's a spirit persuading, encouraging, coercing, influencing him. Verse 7, the nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shall thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover nakedness. Verse 8 of Leviticus 18, the nakedness of thy father's wife shall thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. Verse 9, the nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. The nakedness of thy son's daughter or thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness, or this is your own flesh and blood. 11, the nakedness of thy father's wife. That's verse 11. Hold on one second for me. Okay. Yeah. The nakedness of thy father's wife, verse 11. The nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Meaning that even though you don't have the same mother, that's still your daddy daughter. So you can't be looking at her nakedness. All right? Thou shalt not uncover, verse 12, the nakedness of thy father's sister, for she is thy father's near kinswoman. Verse 13, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy mother's sister, for she is thy mother's near kinswoman. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's brother. Thou shalt not approach to his wife. She is thy aunt. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife. It is thy brother's nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, meaning that you shouldn't be looking at this here. The woman and both of them uncovering their nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, neither shall, listen, thou take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness, for they are her near kinswoman, and it is wickedness. Verse 18 of Leviticus 18. Neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her, to uncover her nakedness, beside the other in her lifetime. Also thou shalt not approach unto a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is put apart from her uncleanness, meaning that while she is menstruating, you shouldn't be messing around with them. Verse 20, moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally, listen, with thy neighbor's wife. Listen carefully. Do not have sex then with thy neighbor's wife. Listen, to defile thyself with her. To defile means to corrupt. That word in the Hebrew, listen what it means. Okay, my memory served me correctly. The word defile in the Hebrew means to literally change you from your original. So what that means is that, let's say God called you to be a singer, a preacher, or a carpenter, an engineer, whatever, And he's saying here that if you have sex with your neighbor's wife or another person's wife, that's going to affect you spiritually. It's giving the enemy the right to manipulate your destiny. Now, this makes sense to me. Here's why. Because there's another law on adultery in Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6. I can't remember which verse, but listen to what it says. I can remember it verbatim. It says, he that committed adultery with a woman is void of understanding and destroyed his own soul. Now, to understand means to comprehend how something operates or how it functions. So the Bible is telling us here that when a person commits adultery, when a man commits adultery, he lacks understanding, meaning that he lacks the implication. What implication? What we're reading right now. He lacks the understanding that he's about to change his destiny. He lacks the understanding by engaging in this ritual, that's what it is, by sleeping with this man's wife, you're inviting spirits to alter who and what you're called to be, to change your whole mindset, and you don't even realize it. And that's why you find men doing like making stupid, foolish. You're like, how could this person do this? This is why. He that committed adultery with a woman is void of understanding and destroyeth his soul. Now, what is his soul? His mind, his will, his intellect. In other words, it's the administrator of his triune being. So if I destroy that, then I'm basically, just moving about aimlessly in life. So you see the spiritual implication when we go to do and get that pleasure, not thinking this is what the devil wants you to do. Focus on the pleasure. Do not focus on the long-term spiritual implication that this is going to bring. A man that committed adultery with a woman destroyed his soul, is void of understanding. So now the demons, because you follow that ritual, they come into play. What is the first thing they start doing? Disabling your affection towards your wife, pulling away all of the love for her, and now giving you that, putting it over here with this woman who you having sex with. So that demon have the upper hand because he's going to ensure that you enjoy the sex, because the sex now is going to produce fake love. It's going to produce fake futures, fake destinies. You fantasize and you're seeing yourself cruising the Atlantic Ocean or flying on jets going over the place. But all of that is keeping you busy while the enemy is ripping your life apart spiritually. And that's what you don't see. That's what you don't see. So you see what I'm telling you now? What I'm teaching you to do is looking at the spiritual implications through scriptures like the way I'm breaking them down to you. So now you see, wow, okay, I get it now. Yeah, you could go there. And you guys could arrange that, man, listen, I know your husband and your man. Let me come over here, get a little bit from you. Nah, sure. Okay, let's go do it. And you guys just getting it on, not knowing the infestation of evil powers, just saying hooray, because they just gave us the spiritual legal right to now deal with them on a spiritual basis. So they're making poor decisions now. After a while, she want to leave her husband because she have no more pleasure in him anymore. Because this lust, that's what it is. It's not love. This lust, what I call fake love, which I call fake futures, because you begin to fantasize with both of you. But the reality is, these are demons and certain nonsense in your head. None of this will work out in the future. So when the demons are tired, they snatch the lust back from you. And now you see her, you see him for what they really are. So you lose all the desire, because the desire was based on the demon lust. And now you're thinking this 5 years later, you don't get your divorce, your husband and move on, marry somebody else, and you realize you made a mistake because the spirit already have no more use for you. So you see the spiritual implication of what you're doing physically, what it's going to produce spiritually against you. Let's continue. He goes on to say here, okay, verse 20 of Leviticus 18, moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife, to defile thyself. That's key, to corrupt thyself, to change you from your original or your original purpose or calling. Verse 21, thou shalt not let any of thy seed, he's talking about sacrificing your kids again, pass through the fire to Molech. That's the name I was trying to remember, Molech. Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. Verse 22, thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind, meaning that thou shalt not, a man should not have sex with another man the way he would have sex with a woman. So he's saying here in verse 22 of Leviticus 18, thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. And what is it again? It is a what? An abomination. And why was he telling them this again? Because this is what they were doing over there in Canaan and Egypt and those other places. Why they were doing that though? Because the spirits that they were calling up from those altars was influencing them to do these things. All right. Verse 23, neither shalt thou lie with any beast or animal. To do what? To defile. You see that word defile again. So far, we saw that you would be defiled if you sleep with animals, and you'll be defiled if you sleep with somebody else's wife. It says here, neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie or have sex therewith. It is what? Confusion. Verse 24 of Leviticus 18. Defile, watch this now, defile not ye yourselves in any. So he's saying now, okay, even though I said to you just now, the defile was only said to to adultery and lying, sleeping with animals. But in verse 24, he says everything he just read off. Defile not yourselves in any of these things. He said, any of what I told you not to do there, that they're doing in Canaan, if you do this, you are giving the devil, the evil spirits, the right that they did not have before. You're not giving them their license. Okay, come here, evil spirit. This is your license to enter my life and corrupt me, defile me, or change me from what God originally had me here for. Defile not yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled. They are defiled and don't even know. They over there in Canaan, they over there in Egypt, doing these abominable acts. He says, defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. And the land, this is the part I wanted to get to, the land is defiled. The land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomit out her inhabitants. Now, let me break that down for you. Now, I'll give you an example. I want to give you a good example. A good example. And the reason why I'm taking so long, because I don't want to offend. Not that I care, but I don't want to distract from what I'm saying. And I know if I say what I want to say, people will go behind it and not get the point of what I'm saying. Anyway, let me just make a fictitious thing then. Okay. I know of a certain place that had a tragedy. This is a true story, but I'm not going to call the place, the country, the nation. They had a terrible act of nature. Well, anyway, it was discovered after it was all said and done, when the cleaning up and trying to bring the place back in order was being done. There was a lot of things that popped up out of the ground, which was determined was a lot of witchcraft stuff. Popped up all over the place. They were seeing a bunch of witchcraft paraphernalia. Anyway, it was already assumed that what happened to that particular place, it was a judgment of God. But there was something else that happened to that place that we just read here. And we read here in verse 25, it says, and the land is defiled thereof. And the land is defiled because the people were bearing a lot of evil, wicked stuff in the land too. Therefore, God says, I visit the iniquities upon it, and the land itself vomit out her inhabitants. So what happened after they came and cleaned up and all this other stuff? The people now begin to leave this place that were once resident there. And when I was reading this, My mind ran right to the scripture right here. Okay? Meaning that the land was literally vomiting them out because there was no more employment. There was I mean nothing there anymore to it was there to build from scratch, start all over again. Because the judgment of God has come, just like how we're reading here right now. Verse 26. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgment, and shall not commit any of these abominations again, neither any of your neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourn among you. So that means, if what he's saying is, anyone coming into your nation, don't let them come with that foolishness. Whatever gods they serve, tell them don't come here. And he told you why, at least they will pollute or defile your land. Verse 27. He says, for all these abominations, listen, all these abominations have the men of the land done. So he's saying these abominations, these detestable things that I, your God, telling you not to mess around with, that's what they're doing in Canaan. And I'm telling you not to do it. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled as a result of it. The land is corrupt. In other words, the land is cursed then. That the land spew not you out also when ye defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever shall commit any of these abominations, even the soul of that commit them shall be cut off from among the people. Therefore shall you keep mine ordinance or my laws, my rules, my commandments, that ye commit not any of these things. So he says the only thing will keep you from doing this foolishness is if you stick to my rules, you stick to my laws, and you stick to my ordinance. Therefore shall anyone keep, therefore shall ye keep mine ordinance, that ye commit not any of these abominable customs. Abominable customs, what do you mean? Do not follow the culture. Do not follow the ancestral traits that they did. All of that, he says, will lead, that's what lead back to altars and evil spirits. So when they tell you about the ancestors, put that on the side. He says, of these abominable customs which were committed before you, and that ye defile not yourselves therein. I am the Lord. I am the Lord your God. Now, as you can see here, my topic here is altars, abomination, and dreams. And so far, I've dealt with the altars, and of course, we've read a quite a bit of scriptures that repeatedly mention the word abominable and abomination. And the abominations was referring to these vile, evil acts that the people were committing in Canaan, and God was telling his people not to participate or even be participants of that. But we all know that these abominable acts were generated from the spirits of the altars that they raised. Again, this is why God told Israel in Deuteronomy 7, verses 1 to 5. He says, now, when you go into the land, and also Leviticus 26, verse 1, when you go into the land, he says, do not allow their do not forge any covenants with them or agreements. He isn't just talking about marriage, he's talking about business, he's talking about land, or anything to do with joining yourself to them, business wise or any otherwise, do not do. Then he went on to the second phase. He now speaks about marriage, because marriage represents covenant, but also consummation. Sex must be involved. Don't let these people marry your children, and don't let your children marry them. Then he told them why, lest they pull you away from your God. Well, the truth is, it'll be those spirits persuading them to abandon God and to join these deities. So there was warning after warning after warning. And he said that these things that they are doing are abominable. Now, we're going to go into our last scripture here, right? And now we're going to go on to the part with the dreams. And again, everything that I've told you so far is how altars. This is how you know altars is speaking to a particular country, a particular community, a particular family, a particular workplace. Like I've been saying, when you see the consistency of negativity, an altar is speaking. Where you see perversion, you see a family who's noted for incest, where you see any form of uh, homosexuality and whatever. Again, don't get mad at me. I am only telling you, and you've read it yourself. If you followed me in the scriptures, God says, "Do not have sex. A man shouldn't have sex with another man as if he would have sex with a woman." And then it says, "It is an abomination unto the Lord." It is not right. It is wrong. It got nothing to do with love. It got nothing to do with hate. It is what the rules say. For me to change the narrative and say, well, I for you to change the narrative and say I am xenophobia, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the equivalent to me riding up to a stoplight in my car, and I put my car in park and point my finger at the stoplight and said, "This here is racist. Why is this traffic light on red? Because I'm a black man." So you see, what did I do? I changed the narrative because the light, everyone must stop to the light. But I decided to make it something else. So these are the arguments I don't run on with people when they start with the pronouns and all of these different titles and to change what the Bible say. I'm done with you. I'm not gonna forge you the time, my time that is, to play hopscotch with me. I read something to you. I have nothing against you. Just like there are things in there that pertains to me. Okay, I'm not singling you out. Just like a person who tells a lie, just like someone who do, it's all there. And the liar could do the same thing you're doing. The liar could say, okay, well, I see what it says, don't lie, but I think that's being biased. He could say that too, all right? But I'm saying that I'm not going to entertain no changing of the narrative because I know that's going to take us on the merry-go-round, and I'm not as athletic as I used to be, so I'm not gonna engage in that. So anyway, getting to our last scripture. Our last scripture, which is Leviticus chapter 20, and we're going to read from verse 9, okay, to verse 27. And what you're going to see is exactly what we read before, but it's going to deal. Remember, we just was dealing with some nakedness issues. You can't look at your mom; she naked. Don't look at your sister, your uncle, your daddy, sister, wife. All of that is you will be defiling. Well, listen what he says: if you uncover their nakedness, he says it's an abomination. He said anyone that does those things that he says not to do, it's an abomination. Okay, it's going to bring heavy spiritual consequences upon you. It's going to defile you, or you're going to be cursed. Word curse simply means you're going to be limited in life. All right. Now watch this. Now this is where it gets beautiful, because now we're going to go into also the dream part. So this Leviticus chapter 20. I'm going to begin from verse